think that the group that worked on this part of the community plan should follow up and propose ground rules for how the plan should be prepared and who should be a part of the team. I don't think that I have any expertise to do that. They obviously had some things in mind in order to include the comment. A definition of where we are now, where we want to be in the future should be the starting point. It's important to know the roadmap of where you want to end up. Some of the key elements, where are we and where do we want to be? How are we going to get there and how long will it take? Because the community plan spans a number of years. How important is education to the process? Staffing, should it be volunteers or should there be paid staff? Funding, what is required and where does it come from? I see this as a major project here and it deserves a major effort by those involved.
I worked for a state agency for a number of years, and during a 3 or 4 year period while I was doing that, we were engaged in a whole lot of planning, and as part of the Public Affairs Office, I was right in the middle of all of that. And I learned a lot about planning in those days, and that information, that understanding is transferable to what we're talking about here. So often, as this question implies, when we talk about planning, we emphasize the process of creating the plan. The who and the what and the when and the how, and my background and experience in doing that certainly would be valuable in this case, and I think this can be a very straightforward kind of process. I think between the citizen engagement and arts and culture members of our city staff, a cross-section of the arts community, working with several council members, because you always need their perspective involved to get their buy-in on that, involvement by the public, and other sorts of processes like that, like the community plan went with, we can have a very straightforward plan done in a fairly short order. And then what? And that's what I learned in that process of working in state government. And then what? I want to extend this question to talk about implementation as much as writing the plan, because that's equally or more important in the process of simply creating the plan. Right now, Sedona has a community plan, a wastewater plan, a drainage plan, a capital improvement plan, a parks and recreation plan, perhaps soon to have an economic development plan, and then an arts and culture plan. And I've said throughout this particular campaign, what we need is not 7 or 8 standing plans all by themselves out there, but one combined, comprehensive, strategic plan that brings them all together, that lays out step-by-step approaches and lays out the timelines and the funding targets together so that they don't get lost one at a time sitting on shelves. It's too easy for a plan to sit on a shelf by itself in the face of the urgent and the pressing. It's unfortunate, but arts plans, for example, are simply, honestly, from my experience on the City Council, not likely to rise to the level of the urgent and pressing when the council is too often looking at things like wastewater disposal and drainage and flooding and buying another police car and all those kinds of things. We need to be sure that this arts plan is incorporated into a broader strategic kind of plan in the city in order to get it implemented, because that's really where the rubber meets the road when you do this kind of thing. We need to extend our focus beyond writing and well into the process of implementation. And I know how to do that because I've been down that road. We must look into that future. Otherwise, I fear that this plan will sit and gather dust on the shelf, as I've seen so many of them do in the past, and we simply can't let that happen.
The plan should be coordinated through the arts coordinator. I understand the apprehension by some to do that, but in order to obtain the most educated input, we need to recruit as many artists, former commissioners, volunteers of each genre, gallery owners, and others who are knowledgeable in their craft to get the best input. In reality, it shouldn't matter if the group is called a commission or a committee, as long as the process remains transparent and the work is good and accomplished. There's so much talent in Sedona, we all need to work together to show the art world what Sedona has to offer. Continuing the funding for all arts programs must be paramount. We currently have over 40 pieces of public art on display citywide. The 1% construction fee is currently being used on the new sculpture in the Schnebly Roundabout, the Open Gate by Ronald Reagan Ward, at a cost of $75,000 approximately. These public works of art are the first jewels that our visitors will see before they even get to our galleries. So it's my belief that we should be pursuing more of those in the future. Did you know that last week Council approved small grant funding for art-related projects in the amount of $87,900? The Council has also committed to additional $44,500 to the arts by hiring a dedicated employee instead of having a human resource director work on art projects in her part-time or spare time. They've also committed $18,000 in arts in the classroom, $3,000 to the Mayor's Art Award. The Art Culture Collaborative has been approved for $40,500. That brings the total to $268,900 for 2014. That's a good amount, but there needs to be more, okay? And I would also consider that the $1.3 million that was spent on Barbers Park for the performing venue, that should be considered arts-related also, because it's all types of different arts, as we all know. I am in favor of continuing this trend, and in favor of increasing the funds in the future. If we are really a city motivated by the arts, then we need to be motivated by the arts. We should be warned, though, if home rule is not approved, I think that council would have no choice but to cut all funding for arts projects and any other non-health and safety project citywide. As your newest city councilor, I would encourage dialogue between city staff and those volunteers that I spoke about before. We must look at increasing funding for this valuable commodity, and that would be you, the artist. Thank you.
Art is Sedona's soul, its raison d'être, and its development is crucial to the future of Sedona. But is Sedona on the right track to continue its development as an arts centre? How do we support all our budding artists, our musicians and performers? Are we ignoring Sedona's cultural and arts heritage? Yes, we need a strategic plan to answer these questions. First of all, the Council should set up a work group or commission type entity to define the plan and answer the question, where are we now, where do we want to be, and how do we get there? It should consist of the stakeholders, for instance, artists, retail outlets, representatives from the organisations such as the Collaborative or Historical Society, one city member, staff member, and somebody with financial skills. The city staff members should be there to assist, give guidelines, and ensure the group stays on track. Experience with the Community Plan Committee showed that too many participants in a plan's development can be unwieldy, so I would advise 8 members. The group then should consult with outside groups such as Main Street or local art leaders. This new commission should firstly study documents detailing the history of the now defunct Arts Commission. Similar to the steering committee for the community plan studied the 2002 plan. It makes sense. It should then come up with key elements, such as how to encourage and support our artists, maybe with grants or scholarships, development of an arts centre around the historical part of Uptown to better reflect our art colony, maybe focusing on Jordan Road as a place of developing this, and with an arts museum as its focal point, a way to exhibit our art and protect Sedona's art heritage, definitely. Utilising and managing our performing arts theatre to make it functional, how to publicise events better, develop more cultural-oriented fests, especially in the off-season. For instance, food fests, celebrating different cultures, foods, Native American, Spanish, Mexican, even some English fish and chips, yeah. How to develop a central plaza with a string of pearls, a central park with benches, greenery, maybe an old-fashioned bandstand where artists can perform poetry, short plays and music, develop the small gathering places all around the city, our pearls, which make up the string of pearls referred to in the community plan. Finally, just one other key element. It should devise ways to raise financial support and enable both tourists and residents to support the arts. For example, cities could have a special Support Sedona Art and Culture Day every month in our restaurants, where diners would have the opportunity of contributing to a special Support Our Arts Fund. This has worked in other places and brought in more business to restaurants. It can work here. Thank you.
Destination art marketing. It may not be currently known for destination for education, but not just arts, but also medical education I'd love to see here. I don't think it'll take much time to get there. Lots of help from many willing to help teach others about art, from children to full adults, will get us to the point of being able to promote this area as this way, in the fact of getting people to come here to visit, to learn art. It's worth the time and the effort. I support the city supporting startup ventures to get this reputation built. However, I feel every group should not depend on a lifetime of support from the city. Once an activity becomes what should be self-sustaining, I am for the level of city support dropping and eventually going away so that money can be used to divert to another venture. take the film festival. I think it'll be well enough established that it can sustain itself. Maybe only from a loan for the city to need to get the destination marketing going, and then to have it paid back by the proceeds of the ticket sales. The marathon is an event that's still too new to be on its own. Thus, building the reputation as a destination for arts education needs several years of support from this city. So I want to see that this city builds its reputation for arts, for health, and for people to come here to learn and hopefully this stay and enjoy the arts that the city has to offer.